as much fuel out there as we've ever had since Caucasians came to this country. Also, we don't have a lot of loggers out there with the equipment and the men that will help fight these fires.
Or the mills that used to take care of that.
And I just think you're getting the most bang for your buck at $50,000, $60,000 that we have in our budget. It's just a real worthwhile entity. Thank you.
Supervisor Smith, did you want something?
Well, I'd like to know, has Ms. Glassy completed her
Well, let me finish.
presentation?
Any other members of the public want to speak on this? Any other members of the public want to speak on this? Okay.
No, I have no, Allison Glassy, Assistant CEO, I have no other presentation except to recommend to you the recommendation that is in the memo attached to the agenda summary regarding the funding for the 3 projects.
That,
No, I have questions for Ms. Glassy. Ms. Glassy, my concern, having followed this for 4 years, is that and it's not about the validity of the projects being presented, it's about the process involved and the sort of lack of information with respect to the agenda packet that clearly delineates for the decision makers the Title II/Title III designation here. And I feel that it doesn't do a service to the board to obfuscate what the core issues are here. And I think it is contrary to how it appears in the agenda summary. It actually is a rather complicated formula, and it's a trade-off between Title II, Title III funds. There's one announcement on the back, the notice of proposed projects. But I think since we have 2 new decision makers here, I think it's very important that we have a full understanding of what Title II and Title III mean, because there are county trade-offs, and it has to do with the offset formula. And I don't feel that this memorandum, the way it's prepared for us, fully gives us the delineation of what that's about. And so what I'd like to hear is a full discussion of Title II/Title III funds and the trade-offs involved, because these are tight budgetary times, and unless we have a full understanding, you know, I just don't think the full information is here. In the past, we have had more substantive, more detailed discussions about that interface. And I believe Ms. Wyatt said last year that some of those funding mechanisms and some of the ways that the funds were transmitted from the federal government had changed. And so I believe that we should have a much more detailed explanation, again, given that we have 2 new decision makers. What are Title II? What are Title III? How do they interface? And how do both of those affect the county budget? And we don't have that information here.
That's a very good question. I'm not the person who's going to be able to provide that information. Jennifer obviously has all that information, and it's locked inside her head in the jury room in the courthouse right now. So
See, if we're being asked to make the decision, it shouldn't be locked in anyone's head. It should be right here in front of us as to what do these dollars do, and when a decision is made here, to then have repercussions to the county budget that we are not fully versed in, I think does a disservice to anyone, and it's not fair to the decision makers to have us take an action that might have consequences that will then be delineated come the budget time or whatever it is, and I don't think that's how we should be conducting ourselves.
And I would agree, if that's information that the board feels is important before you make this decision, then we can see maybe this could be continued to the afternoon, and Jennifer might be able to be back from jury duty at that point. I'm aware of what you're talking about, that there's a trade-off between 2 and 3, Title II and Title III, and it was my understanding that last year that trade-off was kind of resolved at the board level or accepted at the board level, but I could not do it justice to try and explain exactly what the difference is and how that trade-off has been resolved at this point. So
And again, it may be that these are absolutely the best projects and the best course of action, but again, I think that the decision makers need to, it should be educational, particularly for 2 new decision makers. What is Title II? What is Title III? And how does that impact the county budget? Because my recollection is it does impact the county budget, and I think we need full information before we start allocating funds.
yeah, and again, I'm not entirely sure of this, but I believe if it does impact, it's on a dollar-for-dollar basis. So the total amount of that would be the $45,000 that you're being asked to allocate. But, you know, at this point, if that's something that's important for the board before making the decision, then definitely what I can do is talk with Jennifer, and she can transmit that information to me so I can share it with you. Or if she's back from jury duty, then she would be able to explain it
But
herself.
when you get into offsets, it's far more complicated than just saying, these are worthy projects and we should allocate funds for them. When you get into offsets, it affects other aspects of the county budget, unless that's changed. And so if that's changed and that's no longer the case, because I do remember that changes had occurred with how the funding mechanism operated at the local level. But
Yeah.
again, besides just the one paragraph on the agenda summary, it doesn't give notice to anyone what that transmission or that change of policy is, and we need to be fully versed in what that is, I think, to go forward, because the offset concept creates a complication.
Correct, and maybe Roberta.
Roberta, would you try to explain?
Who's turning out to be my
Supervisor
best friend now?
Yeah, no. I can't give you the details of it. I do have a handout that we give out to explain. I give you a chart of the dollars and how it was broke out. Jennifer does have, and it hasn't changed much from last year on how they separated out the dollars and how it affects the domino effect of your budget. So I will give you this.
Thank you, Roberta. Supervisor Brown?
Yes, Supervisor Smith, there actually is on the very last page of the items in the packet. It does give a website that you can go to understand Title II and Title III, but I do understand your concern about impacts to the county budget.
Right.
I did talk about the air patrol, but there's also the other projects that are mentioned, and it is the search and rescue that is manned by a lot of volunteers through the Sheriff's Department, as well as the Fire Safe Council.
And it is my
All worthy.
understanding that the reason the board went in the direction of dipping into Title III as opposed to sticking with Title II was because the board wanted to be able to fund some of these projects that could not be funded out of Title II. So that's how they got to this point. But I
But an
can't
offset
explain the
applied in one
domino.
case and it didn't in another, and I
Right.
just think it's important. It's rather nuanced, and I think it's important
Yeah.
that we have the information and it arrive in our packet.
Okay, and that is duly noted, and between now and this afternoon, I will connect with Jennifer and...
Well, we can get that information, but I'm gonna see if this will move forward. I'm gonna entertain if there's a motion or a continuance, whatever the board's wishes are. So, is there a motion? Oh, Supervisor McCowan?
Well, just as a matter of process, we've had a request for information by one supervisor, and I think that we should probably honor that request.
Okay, well, Supervisor Smith, can I ask you this? If, is your request for more information, you want this continued before you get to the information, or?
Yes, I would, because I think that we're sort of burying some of the issues, and there have been changes. It is rather a complicated formula. There were some changes that did occur over the last couple of years. I think that if Ms. Wyatt could just provide us with the information of how that's occurred, we don't have a full delineation of that in the packet. I think we should. We have a notice of proposed projects on the back side from the executive office. That's not a date. It's rather complicated. The sheets that someone from the public just provided, it talks about, here it listed as Title I, not Title II and Title III, but it lists $546,000 for the County of Mendocino in Title I, and then Title III, $45,000. It's a formula, it's a ratio, I believe, between the two, and I just think, as a process point, as Supervisor McCowan said, we need to know why we're doing what we're doing. And I think that these projects